What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are back with Avengers vs. X-Men, the Versus series, individual fights between these characters, and we have Spider-Man versus Colossus. Not only that, it's Spider-Man versus the unstoppable Colossus. So as always, a little bit of explanation here, and if you need to get caught up, make sure you click the link to the playlist at the end of this video. The entirety behind Avengers vs. X-Men is that a girl named Hope Summers, the first mutant born after House of M, is basically going to become the Phoenix. And the fear of the Avengers is that as the Phoenix, she'll lay waste to life on Earth. But the X-Men, because they not only see her as one of their own, but because her existence is so incredibly important to the future of the X-Men and really the mutant population on Earth, refuse to hand her over. That led to a fight. And so what you do here is you initially pick up with Spider-Man kind of bobbing and weaving between what Colossus is trying to do, which is to say, attack him. And he even makes this comment, right? He's like, seriously though, armor over steel skin? Can you say overkill, right? Like, we need to get you on Project Runway ASAP. But for all the joking, this is not just regular Colossus with osmium skin. This is unstoppable Colossus. So how did he get to this point, right? So in Marvel Comics, they had a story called Fear Itself. And the long and short of the explanation for this is that Colossus, as you know him, was just always the Colossus that we always knew going into that story. But that revolved around a guy who was really just kind of like the long lost brother of Odin, known as the Serpent. When this guy emerged, he basically started giving hammers to different people out there so they could serve in his army, but also start reaping and sowing chaos. The Juggernaut got one of those hammers, and he received a power boost because of it. In order to find a way to defeat the Juggernaut, Colossus and his sister Magic went to the realm of Sidorak, the guy who traditionally powers the Juggernaut through the Crimson Gem. And by showing them what Juggernaut was doing on Earth, it was really just Sidorak getting jealous and seeing Juggernaut is using a power other than the one that was given to him. And so what Sidorak did is he took away Cain Marco's ability to operate as his kind of envoy on Earth and gave Colossus the Crimson Gem, which in turn turned Colossus into the unstoppable Colossus. So he's basically an answer to the question, what would happen if Colossus had the powers of the Juggernaut? It's pretty dope. This guy is insanely powerful. And so one of the things to know is that even with this being the case, he's not like Cain Marco, where he's almost like a sociopath destroying everything in his path and relishing in it. Instead, he doesn't actually want to kill Spider-Man. And even while the two of them are here dealing with what are in effect these kind of robotic forces that are trying to bring the conflict to an end, none of it's going to happen and none of it's really going to have anything going on. We do get this kind of little fun fact, which is something that you guys may not have known, that spider fluid is 2 or at least over 2.5 times as strong as steel. Longtime Spider-Man fans have known that, right? But new folks may not. And so Spider-Man picks up pretty quickly that unstoppable Colossus is basically the Juggernaut. And so he even asks, like, want to know how this goes down? I blind you for a bit. You get all annoyed since you can't hit me. I tire myself out punching you for 800 million hours. Eventually, I trick you into falling into some half-set concrete, a bottomless pit, or an inexplicable vat of molten marshmallow. Sorry for the spoilers. But one of the things to know here, and a lot of people will look at this, if you're not overly familiar with Spider-Man, they'll look at this and say, there's no conceivable way that this guy could stand a chance against unstoppable Colossus. And yeah, like the Juggernaut is incredibly fast due to the powers that he has. And really Colossus himself is actually faster now, not just because of the powers of the Juggernaut, but also because of his own abilities. They don't traditionally speed him up, but like training and all that kind of stuff just sort of enhances what he was originally capable of back when he was first introduced in Marvel Comics. But the thing about this is Spider-Man has the one thing that allows him to overcome and really even go toe-to-toe with various characters out there that would otherwise destroy him. And that's his spider sense and his agility. That's one of the things that I want you guys to notice here. He's not really relying much on brute strength because there is only so much he can do. His ability to punch Colossus is really just kind of limited to like maybe irritating him or kind of softening him up a little bit, but it's not as though Spider-Man's going to be able to like one-shot unstoppable Colossus. That's just not going to happen. And so what he ends up doing is kind of webbing him up, doing what he can, but at the end of the day, it still doesn't matter. Unstoppable Colossus ends up coming out just clapping his hands, creating a sonic punch, or at least a sonic boom, which is enough to kind of send Spider-Man flying, but it's not enough to destroy him. Now, one of the other things that I want to specify here is that Marvel officially lists these kind of robotic guys out here that are trying to quell the conflict as being Doombots because they are fighting in Latveria. They're not really traditional Doombots, right? They're not really Doombots as you normally know them. And that's because Doctor Doom kind of has a few different versions of those, right? He's got like your old school Doombots from like way back when. Then he's just kind of got like your regular robots, right? The old school Doombots are just kind of like the ones that look like Doctor Doom, and sometimes they believe they're Doctor Doom, depending on how they're programmed and whatnot. But with these robots, they're more just kind of like a localized police force, right? Like Flatfoots, for those of you guys out here who don't know the name of cops that walk the beat. But the fact remains, like literally Colossus just like grabs these robots and just starts hurling them at Spider-Man, which allows him to operate with some kind of a distraction because Spider-Man's kind of bobbing and weaving, but he's also a superhero. So what he's trying to do is bob and weave out of the way of these robots that are flying into him while also making sure they don't hit other people and create collateral damage. Now, Colossus himself was always an empathetic character, so you could make an argument that he's not really looking to hurt other people, but hurling robots at someone while they're dodging out of the way would probably lead to collateral damage in some capacity. But even when Colossus gets his hands on Spider-Man, Spider-Man continues to crack jokes. Now, the reason why, this is one of the most important things, for years and years in Marvel Comics, we didn't fully know why he cracked jokes. And even at the time this story was being written, we didn't definitively know. It was largely assumed by really Spider-Man fans that he did it to get under the skin of his guys, but that was really more rooted in like tropes, right? Like characters like Spider-Man who crack jokes while they're fighting to convince the guys they're fighting that they're not actually taking the conflict seriously. It wasn't until Renew Your Vows that we actually learned that was the truth, that Spider-Man's cracking jokes here when he's fighting Colossus because he wants Colossus to believe he doesn't take him seriously. But Colossus doesn't care. He doesn't buy into any of that malarkey, and instead he just keeps on taking it to Spider-Man. Even when Spider-Man like throws one of these robots back at him, it doesn't make any difference. And he just tells him, give up before I lose control, before I kill you. Now, that's one of the things to know is that with Unstoppable Colossus, a lot of the story that was going on with his character up to this point in time dealt with some mental instability, right? Not that he was like a guy who was a sociopath or a psychopath, but in the sense that it's hard for him to maintain this extreme amount of rage, because that's part of what it means to be a host for the Crimson Gem of Sidorak. It kind of feeds on your rage and it feeds on your anger. And so at all times, Colossus kind of had to keep himself under control, keep himself in check. Otherwise, he would just completely lose it, be over-encumbered with rage, and lose his mind. And so that's where Spider-Man kind of chimes in and says, not a chance. That's the other thing about the Juggy Spidey brawl. You're unstoppable. Well, guess what? That means I have to be unstoppable too. The problem with this is that Daredevil kind of shows up and says, hope's not here, and then Spider-Man takes off. And this was just kind of an out for Marvel, because if we're being honest with ourselves, no way Marvel Comics is going to tell a story where the face of the company gets absolutely crushed by any other guy out there. That's not going to happen. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. I'm not even going to ask for opinions on who you think would win. If this fight went on long enough, Colossus would have killed Spider-Man. Like, he would have beat him to death. Like, there's no way that that was not going to happen. I mean, it's just because Colossus would have just lost control, and Spider-Man just simply cannot hold up against the strength of someone like Unstoppable Colossus. Because again, with the power of the Juggernaut, he can fight indefinitely. He doesn't need food, doesn't need water, doesn't need sleep or anything like that. His energy goes on forever. So Spider-Man would wear down, Colossus would not, and that would be the end of it. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this to an end. Let me know down in the comments section who you think would win. I guess now I'm asking for an opinion. And if you need to get caught up on Avengers versus X-Men, at least the versus fight, make sure you click this link to the playlist, and I will catch you all later. Peace.